Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello everyone. So for today's episode, I'm diving into simple ways to better take care of yourself and actually make a shift in your lifestyle. I want to really highlight the aspect of making a shift in your lifestyle because I do think that this is something that is often the bigger struggle for most of you who ask me about this or might bring this up in passing, or maybe I've seen comments or just in conversations where this is the struggle and people are always asking, oh, what do you do for this and what do you do for that? And I always find myself talking about how it's not just this one thing, it is an overarching lifestyle. But I also recognize that it's not super easy just to make a big shift in your lifestyle. So I'm going to share a few different things I have been doing over the past few years. Some of it is recent, some of it was a few years ago, even dating back to college. And all of these are really easy, something you could do starting tomorrow, and wouldn't be a major shift in your life necessarily, but implementing these small improvements will probably help you feel inclined to make the bigger shifts. So the first thing that comes to mind is, this is going to actually probably sound random to you guys and probably redundant for those of you who do listen to a lot of health and wellness conversations, but drinking water and drinking a lot of it. So the first thing I do in the morning when someone asks me, what do you grab the first thing in the morning? It's not my phone. It's actually a glass of water. I usually have a glass of water sitting next to my bed. So maybe it's on the floor or on the nightstand, and I will drink this before I go to bed and also first thing in the morning. Side note, this is going to sound a little weird to some of you, but I actually pay attention to the color of my pee. And because when I was in middle school, I played field hockey quite competitively, and my coach actually made a comment. She said that we should be always staying fully hydrated, and how we can know this is by paying attention to our pee color. If it's yellow, you're definitely pretty dehydrated. If it's coming out clear, then you are hydrated. And so that is a great rule of thumb. If you wake up and you go do your normal bathroom routine and you notice that you're often, showing that it's yellow, then that's something to kind of keep in mind right now, right? So what are small things you can do to just feel better and start your day well? Drinking lots of water. I will drink whatever is left in my glass from the night before, and then I will pour myself another glass and really try to chug a lot of water to help with any dehydration that might have happened overnight. And also because I don't rush into getting into my workout routine, which is typically the next thing that I do in the morning, which is go and do whatever workout I have planned. But the first thing is drinking lots of water. Another reason why I'm really mindful about this, and something I actually pay attention to, is because my skin has been the type that I've always had struggling skin in some shape or form since I was in middle school. I have been more acne prone growing up, and it was only in the recent 3 years or so that my skin really started to clear up. And of course, I still have some flare-ups here and there, but for me, for the most part, my skin has just gotten way better. And a piece of advice I feel like I have noticed from a lot of people who do have great skin is they emphasize the amount of water that they drink. As far as I know, obviously not an expert in this space, so don't quote me on this, but as far as I know, the recommended amount of water you should be drinking is half your weight in fluid ounces. So that's a good rule of thumb. Regardless, I really just make it easy on myself by drinking lots of water, peeing a lot, and then just kind of checking and seeing if it's coming out clear, because if it's coming out pretty clear, then I know that I am staying hydrated. And I think it's often reflected in how my gut feels, how my stomach feels, and also just how my skin is. If I'm hydrated and if I'm taking care of myself well, then it's usually going to be reflected in the way I glow and the way other people glow. You know, I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I see another woman, she's glowing a certain way, her skin looks good, she's radiant, she's, you know, in a very loving, happy frequency, I'm always curious as to what she's doing and also what her lifestyle looks like. And night and day, they're always going to say something related to what they do in terms of nutrition, and water is a big part of that. The next simple tip, this is going to be kind of redundant because I talk about it a lot, but getting some sort of exercise in. Now, my best piece of advice is not going to be to do the frequency that I do, but you have to start with where it makes sense and truly challenge yourself to take a look at what is realistic and challenging for you. So going back to when I got into this, I remember this vividly. I was a senior in college, and my junior year, I was definitely trying to shed some weight. I was trying to become more toned and fit and everything, and senior year as well. And I remember the biggest struggle for me was consistency. And so a friend of mine who is a good practitioner of this, they recommended for me to start with a weekly amount that was feasible and also a challenge from what I was currently doing. So at that time, my senior year of college, 3 times a week was the perfect amount. And I was advised to do this for 4 or 6 weeks straight and making sure I don't miss any of those weeks before I bring it up to 4 times a week. This person specifically advised me not to try to jump to 4 to 5 times a week, but start with an actual number and go with consistency versus, you know, 1 week I'm doing 4 days a week and the next week I'm doing 1. It's just not going to help my body. And so exercise and physical exercise is a big deal to me. It's something that I've always turned to make myself feel good. It changes the way I think, it changes the way I feel. I know there's a lot of, you know, science behind this, so that's a given. But obviously I'm a little biased because I come from a background as an athlete. And so if you didn't do sports growing up, or maybe you don't have a strong interest in things like that, I would advise to, if I was starting out right now and I didn't have an inkling towards a specific sport and I'm going for 3 times a week, this is probably what I would do. I would probably do 1 day a week at the gym. Hopefully there's maybe one in your apartment complex or near where you live. Figure that one out. The most convenient could be at home too, but personally I find working out at home to be less motivating. I think it's just better when I see other people out there physically working on themselves or being trained. Like, I like that push, and I think sometimes you got to do the thing that scares you. Number 2, I would probably incorporate Pilates in that 3-day-a-week regimen. So some sort of Pilates, whether it's reformer or megaformer. I personally like megaformer because it is harder. So megaformer Pilates it is for me. And then the 3rd day would be something like maybe join a pickleball league or join some sort of physical activity, some sport that would push you a little bit. And it can double as a way to make new friends, or maybe you bring one of your friends and say, hey, why don't we join this league and go to this every week together? And on the other side, we're also going to stay active and keep ourselves active and fit, right? So that's 3 days a week of physical activity that is intentionally planned. Figure out what that would look like for you. Again, I personally love to do this in the morning for a few reasons. When I work out in the morning, I'm not wearing any makeup. I love to sweat and sweat out my pores, and, you know, just again, for skin reasons, like I said earlier, I like to just look and feel my best and look and feel sharp. And so sweating it out is going to do the trick. And it's just harder if I work out at the end of the day. Again, given I did do this my first year out of college because I started work at 8 a.m. So I just didn't have it in me to work out at 5:30 in the morning, because I think realistically, if I was going to go to work, be at the office at 8, I would probably need to work out at 5:30, like 5:30 to 6:30, give myself time to eat a little bit of breakfast, shower, get ready, and drive to work, right? So, yeah, if you have the opportunity to choose and structure your day, try to put it in the morning. And again, keep in mind, if you can only do a morning walk for one of the days, that's okay too. But how can you make it intentional? How can you make it more than just a walk, right? Are you going to go without headphones and actually clear your head? Are you going to go for 30 minutes? Are you going to track how many steps you're going to get in, right? I also do this in my weekly routine. I go on a sunrise walk with one of my friends, and it's really nice because we get over 10,000 steps already before 8 a.m., which is amazing feeling. So that's something else that has made me feel better and is a big part of my lifestyle when it comes to how I live. It's just I'm constantly staying active. So that's probably one of the bigger tips I'm going to give you. It's not as simple as just drinking more water, but something to keep in mind is find a way to keep physical activity a priority and a consistent thing. Again, let me reiterate, it is better for you to go consistently every Monday and Thursday than, oh, I think I'm going to go Tuesday and Thursday and Friday this week and then maybe Sunday and then we'll see next week. Like, just make it consistent for yourself so that you can build some structure in your life. It doesn't always have to be the case, but just some things in life, when it's structured and it's set in your calendar, it's how you get to that body, physique, or mental health, whatever it is, that's going to be how you get there. Because if you're not consistent, it's going to take a lot longer. And I can think of so many different areas of my life where this is also applicable. My next tip is around skincare. So something that I've been a lot more interested in over the past year is around skincare and what I'm actually putting on my skin, and also going the non-toxic route, which I think for some people is very eyebrow raising. They're like, oh, what does non-toxic actually mean? Blah, blah, blah. And again, I am not an expert in this, but I will admit that I also listen and research on my own time and compare and contrast what I find. And I come to my own conclusion. And what I am seeing now and what I am approaching is a just more natural approach to skincare. So number one, less is more. And number two, when it comes to skincare specifically, I am trying to buy from brands that are not as common and are also natural in terms of the ingredients, and it is actually clean and from nature. And I'm not going to go into it, and mind you, I'm not vegan or I'm not even necessarily plant-based or anything, but I think interestingly with skincare, that's the route I've gone. So I've had the founder of the skincare brand that I use on my podcast. It's actually with Jenna Levine. She's the founder of Linnae Botanicals, and I have been using Linnae way before I had her on the podcast. And I remember just noticing a difference in my skin and how it looks and feels. It just doesn't feel irritated. I love that it comes from actual nature. And the one thing that really stuck out to me a year ago when I first started looking into this is just when I saw videos of her speaking and her in her essence, I was like, wow, I really would love to look like that, like glowing like that when I am, her age. And again, I'm not pointing out that it's an age thing or anything, but I think kind of to my first point earlier about glow, and when a woman radiates in a certain way, you can tell that they take care of themselves in a specific way. And I very much saw that in the founder of the skincare brand. And so, yeah, funny enough too, I found Linnae on Instagram just through, I think, going through a bunch of different pages and really looking into what are my non-toxic options. And I landed on Linnae, and I watched a ton of videos before I bought their products, and I decided to give it a try, and I've been loving it. So definitely highly recommend. There is a code I have too because they were on the podcast. So there was a code for you guys. I'm going to link it in the show notes if you are curious and want to try Linnae Botanicals. But that is something that, I don't know, like just being really cognizant of what I'm putting on my skin has been a game changer for how I feel. I don't know if that makes sense to any of you guys, but there is just something about it when you simplify all of the mass consumerism that they're trying to sell you, and you process and make decisions on your own for what is best for you. That's gonna push me into my next point around another simple way to better take care of yourself, which is just how you eat. I'm sure there's a lot of people that talk about this, and given I'm actually still in the work in progress of this, and also going to preface that I eat sweets and I love chocolate. I love chocolate chip cookies. Of course, I try my best to have the healthiest ingredients, and I go to Whole Foods and really try to do my best. And, you know, even with chocolate chips, I try to use, personally right now, I love Lily's, and they use cacao and stevia. So anyways, I have my own, you know, there's no one's going to be perfect about it, but something that I've been doing when it comes to eating that has made me feel better overall is just being aware of how much protein I am having in each meal, and what types of eggs I'm buying, and what types of produce I'm buying, where is it coming from. And I know that can feel like a lot of effort, but again, this topic is around taking care of yourself. So if you care about your health and you care about how you feel internally and how you look as well, so look, feel, all of it is a whole package. If that stuff matters to you, then you probably want to pay attention to how you're eating. What you're eating is a different topic, but just pay attention to, okay, the small things. Am I getting enough protein to keep myself full? Am I using a mixture of animal protein and plant-based protein? That's something that I'm getting into, and I have been hearing from the experts on this, which is that there's a lot of conversations around, okay, there's protein, and also perhaps the best approach is mixing a good amount of animal protein and plant-based because of the amino acids in animal protein and how that essentially helps your body to grow, but it's constantly in growth stage, and that also is going towards aging, whereas tapping into plant-based protein helps with reverse aging. And I'm not going to get into the science of it. I did have the director of education of Prolon on the podcast, which is coming out soon, but she talked about this on our conversation, so I definitely will leave the science and all of that to that conversation, and for you to also do your own research. But I think just being aware, right? Like, what I mean is, back in the day for me, I might have mindlessly gotten Chipotle for lunch, and I might have gotten, you know, the sweet greens. And again, not to say like sweet greens is bad or anything. I'm just pointing out that if you have the opportunity to prepare your own meals, like let's say breakfast and lunch especially, you know, what are you eating for breakfast that is consistent and makes you feel full and satiated, and it is nutritious, it's whole foods, it's not processed foods, right? So I'll give you an example because I personally learned when I saw other people's examples of how they're eating and how they're taking care of themselves. So in the morning, number one, when I had functional dietitian on, Lauren Pompanos, I don't know if I'm saying actually her last name correctly, but she talked about the importance of, you know, an average of 30 grams per meal for women of protein. And so eggs, by the way, that was not the first time I heard that, but she was really the one that kind of nailed it in for me. And I was like, okay, I've heard this 3 times now. This is probably a universal truth. And so something I pay attention to is, of course, now my protein intake. So in the morning, I do enjoy eggs. I've been loving this for a long time now. So I typically eat 3 to 4 eggs in the morning. And then I'll pair that with sourdough bread. I love this sea salt butter. It's from a French brand that you can get from Whole Foods, though, I'm pretty sure, at least in the Whole Foods in New York that I get it from. And then what else? Sometimes I'll have avocado with that. That's pretty much my breakfast right now. I am trying to mix it up though, but something to keep in mind, like eggs have 6 grams of protein. So that's about 24 grams of protein right there if I'm having 4 eggs. But I really try to bring in more by, maybe adding a protein smoothie. I'm not really consistent in that yet, but something I will say I definitely add is I love a small cup of green juice. So usually I'll get green juice from the farmer's market or maybe Whole Foods, and then I'll just pour it out into a glass. So the bottle I buy usually lasts for like 2 or 3 times. And then I also love fruit. So I'm a berries kind of girl, and I know berries have antioxidants that help with anti-aging and just overall great for you, right? I love a bowl that's a mix of blackberries, strawberries, blueberries, and to make it easy, I just cut it up if I need to, especially the strawberries. I will cut it up in advance and I'll just put it in a glass container to store it in my fridge so that every morning I can just pour it out into a bowl instead of cutting new strawberries each time, which I used to do. So that's why I'm sharing that piece of advice. For lunch, it can range, but I think sometimes depending on the day, like I haven't tapped into plant-based protein too much yet, but it's something I am, like actively speaking here, I am going to try to incorporate going forward. So right now, my lunch typically will consist of maybe jasmine rice and ground beef and sweet potatoes, maybe avocado. Other times I like to do a salad, a nice big salad with protein, of course. So my salads are very simple. I like cherry tomatoes. I like romaine lettuce or butter lettuce, really depends. I also throw in onion, so just diced or sliced onion, cucumber, also great, and then protein. So sometimes for me, I'll do 2 hard-boiled eggs in my salad. Sometimes I will do maybe just a different type of protein, who knows. And then when it comes to dressing, again, being really mindful of how I'm taking care of myself. I like it homemade now. It's a really easy recipe. I just do a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of balsamic vinaigrette, and a little bit of Dijon mustard, and I kind of swirl it. So this one, shout out to my high school best friend, she showed me, or she made salad, and one time I was like, what is this dressing? I love it. And she showed me that it was something that she just made on the spot, and I was like, okay, wow, I need to do this. So that was long-winded, but what I'm really trying to emphasize is paying attention. That's the action step, okay? Paying attention to how you eat is a great place to start when it comes to taking care of yourself, okay? Because I believe food is medicine. We can also heal through food and how we eat. Less is more. So if you're trying to solve a problem in your life right now that's pertaining to how you look and how you feel, you can probably solve at bare minimum 70% of that with what you're eating or how you're eating. So maybe it is taking away certain foods that could be triggering something, and maybe it's adding in more something that is something that you need. So it could be more protein, right? Again, I think that is a common problem that I can at least speak on from observing friends of mine too, that's not something that we're really paying attention to on a daily basis compared to whatever you see on TikTok, right? Like you're probably remembering what you saw on TikTok and Instagram more than you're paying attention to how many grams of protein you're taking and overall how you're eating, which is fascinating because one is going to improve your life, the other is not going to quite improve your life. My last simple way to better take care of yourself, this one might be surprising for some of you, but it's going to be just around getting regular self-care. And let me explain. what I mean by that, or what I'm thinking of when I talk about regular self-care, is, facials, if you can afford it, massages, stretching. Okay, that one's free. You can definitely stretch every day. I know, prefacing, I am biased that, when it comes to stretching, because I am a figure skater, and so I have to, or not have to, but I have the stronger desire to stretch every single day. But my gosh, there is nothing more enjoyable than feeling my body crack and really stretch itself out when I'm stretching, because it just shows how tight our bodies are. And we're also constantly sitting, and we're constantly kind of stationary. So it's great to do, great way to really improve how you feel physically. And so it ties into massages, something I do recommend if you can really just set aside. Again, you can go to a hole-in-the-wall spot. Like, there's a New York spot that I go to that is like $60 for 70 minutes or something. And it's great. It's not going to break the bank. You could do that maybe once every 2 months, whatever you can afford or have time to do. But just pouring into that is, again, taking care of yourself in that regard. That's physically, or getting facials. For me, they're pricey, so I don't do them frequently. I wish I could do them once a month, but realistically right now I go once a quarter. Sometimes I've gone like once every 2 months in the past at most, but find a facialist, find a place where you can go to really, clear up your skin and exfoliate and do all of that, right? Like, just like a cleanse, like find that cleanse. So for me, again, like, I love stretching daily. That's a simple way to do it. I love incorporating massages once every 6 to 8 weeks. Facials, really just to like cleanse the face. Taking care of your hair. I know that, again, these things are maintenance and it does add up, but I'm not saying to overspend or overindulge, but I'm talking about take care of yourself, right? This is funny. Side note, I read this in this book. I forget the title of it now. It's something about like the art of savoir-faire. I'm not saying it correctly, but it was written by a French woman. And long story short, she actually talked about how for French women and in French culture, I forget the second thing, but one of the things that is so important to French women is a really good haircut. And that's a great place to invest. And I agree. I go to get my haircut once every probably like 8 to 12 weeks. It used to be once every 8 weeks for sure, and now I've extended it a little bit, but that's how frequent I get my haircuts. And then I also get a fringe trim, which is luckily complimentary with my haircuts, but or what I really mean by that is like it's complimentary when I go and get like a bang trim, because I'm going to my regular hairstylist. And so doing those things in a certain cadence, like once a month or once every 6 weeks, whatever that might look like for you, that adds up. And it adds up in the way you feel put together, in the way you physically look and feel, and that impacts your confidence, that impacts how you show up, that impacts your energy. And of course, there are so many other things I could talk about for different ways you can better take care of yourself, but these are the things that came to mind. I did not write this list down. I did not over plan or over outline. I didn't even really outline this episode. I really wanted it just to come from a raw space, and I'm recording this in LA right now, not in my normal New York home. So just take care of yourself, and keep in mind that it takes investment to take care of yourself in the ways I've spoken about, some of which are free though. Again, stretching is free, and technically, you can do workouts that are not costly. Like, I go to the gym that is a part of my apartment building, and I intentionally chose where I live, where it comes to the gym, because I knew that I didn't want to spend X amount of money on a gym membership. I wanted to be able to go upstairs right away, go to the gym and go home, right away in the morning, right? So it doesn't have to be costly, but you also will probably over time make different decisions as you tap into this lifestyle and tap into being more aware of how to better take care of yourself. Because then you're going to realize, oh, wow, am I going to spend my money here or am I going to spend my money here? And for me personally, I don't really drink that much. I might drink 2 martinis a month at best. And part of it is because I think, number one, I don't want to spend $20 or $22 on a cocktail. And number two, it's because I also am so indulged now into this, as some might call it, like more mindful, clean way of living, that sometimes you just don't feel like doing the alternative, right? And so it is fun just to be like, oh no, I'm not going to drink tonight, or I don't feel like drinking, or I don't, I won't join you in a class or whatever. But that also for me is like, okay, I just saved $22 on a martini. Where can I spend that money now instead? What does $22 get me? Maybe that is, I don't know, like a pedicure or something, right? Like different decisions will result in different outcomes, and it just comes down to you. It comes down to how much you care about how well you feel. And this episode is very much especially for those of you who are kind of in the stage where you need to get your shit together, and you know that you're not going to apply yourself if you try to go for a big goal. So start with something small. Start with one of these 4 and see how that goes for you. See how it makes you feel. Document it. Write it down for a whole month. Try it out for 30 days and really see what consistency does. Because if you're going to do this for 1 week and then you're going to stop, that's going to be always on you, and you're not going to be able to get far if you don't build consistency and a frequent cadence in any of these kind of self-care rituals. I hope this episode was helpful and informative and you took some notes. As always, if you enjoyed this episode and you're taking away some of these ideas, please be sure to let me know and DM me on Instagram. Thank you for those of you who recently DM'd me and told me about being a longtime listener from an old podcast or just being a listener for a long time. I really appreciate it. And I love engaging with you. So if you have any separate questions or things you're curious about to maybe ask me, or maybe you would love to be a topic on the podcast, please let me know. Again, DM me on Instagram at Emily E. Duong or the podcast Instagram at What Fulfills You. Everything is linked in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. I will chat with you all in the next one.